Hi everyone, and thanks for clicking on this video. My name is Una and I was invited onto the Skida YouTube channel today, and we're talking about feminism, but you probably already saw that from the title. So yeah, today we're talking about feminism. Maybe you have heard about feminism, maybe you know a feminist, but you don't actually know what it really means. So I'm here to help. And I will give you a definition of feminism. I will talk about steps that you yourself can take towards becoming a feminist and supporting the fight for gender equity. So yeah, without further ado, I guess let's get into it. So what actually is feminism? The big F word we're talking about here. Feminism is the belief in and the advocacy of political, economic and social equality of the sexes. And normally this is expressed through organised activities such as protests and sit-ins on behalf of women's rights and women's interests. But it is important to mention that feminism does not only fight for women's rights, but also it generally aims at creating or ending gender discrimination. Any gender, that be women, men, or non-binary people who also face a lot of discrimination, and instead bringing in gender equity. Now there is this big idea that people have that all feminists hate men, and that's not the case. We do not hate all men, not all feminists hate men, although, you know, sometimes you make it pretty hard for us not to hate you. I read a really good quote the other day that I would like to read out to you, which I think explains it quite well. So it goes, "The enemy of feminism isn't men, it's the patriarchy, and patriarchy is not men. It is a system, and women can support the system of the patriarchy just as men can support the fight for gender equality." If you don't know what the patriarchy is basically a social system in which men hold the primary power, and they take in the dominant roles in leadership, in politics, and so on. And they enjoy a lot of social privileges which women and people of marginalized genders do not do. The thing is that while, yes, the patriarchy can benefit men because they're more likely to get into leadership positions, because they're less likely to be discriminated upon because of their gender, it also brings a negative side, because I don't know if you've heard about of the concept toxic masculinity, but basically that's the idea that men have to be really strong and have this really old-fashioned idea of what being masculine is, which means that men are discouraged from, for example, talking about their feelings. And this is something that feminists recognize and they want to fight against. So it's really not the hatred of all men. We're here to fight this fight for men too, who are being oppressed by the patriarchy. Hi, hello, editing Una's coming in here looking a lot less glamorous, but what I want to say is that I think it's really showing that I went into such large detail of how men suffer from the patriarchy. And I think this is really important, and it's definitely something that should be included when we're talking about feminism. But I think a lot of feminists fall into this trap of having to justify themselves and thinking they have to address that men are also suffering in order to feel valid, and in order to get men to be feminists too and to care about the cause and to fight for the cause alongside us, when actually the root and the core of feminism, first and foremost, should be that we're right now focusing on women's rights and the rights of people that are marginalized because of their gender, and not men's rights. So this is the part of the video where I tell you watching what you can do to become a feminist, to take feminist actions, and to fight the fight for gender equity. So let's go. Tip number 1 is educate yourself. It's really easy. Don't be lazy and see what resources are out there. We'll make it easier for you and pop a lot of resources in the description that you can check out on books, on Instagram accounts, maybe podcasts. So yeah, check all that good stuff out. So the second tip I have for you is using more gender inclusive language. This basically means that while English is said to be quite a gender neutral language, there are still examples of how you can use language to be even more inclusive. So for example, a great word that a lot of people use, which is completely normalized, is calling a group of people guys. So like, hey guys, do you want to go for a drink? Even if all these people who you're talking to are women or are non-binary people. So this is something that we can actively work on, because studies have actually shown that people will feel, or that especially women and non-binary people will feel less included in the discussion if we keep using the term guys. Another example for this would be job descriptions. If a job is described in the way of just using the male version, so for example policemen, it is much less likely that women will apply to these job positions because they feel that they are not wanted there. Now the third tip, which is always a good tip, is open up the discussion about feminism. If you are new to the topic, if you're already experienced in the topic, it doesn't matter, just start getting into conversations about this with people. Maybe if you have read one of the books that we listed down below, or even if you just watch this video, be like, hey friend, have you heard about this video? It's really cool and informative. Let's have a chat about it. Let's see what we took away from it. So just having these really, easy conversations about the topic of feminism just opens up and makes people more aware of the necessity to be a feminist. And something that goes especially for the men watching this, I want you to be feminists whenever you are around people. I do not only want you to be feminists when you're talking to your girlfriend or your mother or your grandmother. I want you to really call out your friends when they are making a sexist joke. If someone's like, oh yeah, women belong in the kitchen, then that's your in. That's where you come in. It is your job to also hold your friends accountable and to educate yourself and those around you, because this will bring the conversation forward. This will also show to men that this is not only a subject that women need to think about, but that there is also a big need for men to talk about these subjects and to be active in discussions when we're talking about this. However, and there is a fine line here, this does not mean that you should infiltrate every single room where there is a woman. When we're talking about spaces for women where they can share their experiences, something that men like to do is explain how a woman is feeling. I can actually share a fun little anecdote on this topic, and that is that recently I was applying to do a talk about feminism, and instead of choosing myself, who was a woman, I ended up choosing a man who wanted to talk about feminism. So check your privilege and see as a person if this is really your space to talk about a subject, and whether there might not be someone else who's more qualified or who has more personal experience about this. So now we are going to talk about what steps you as an institution can take to be more feminist and to be more inclusive of women. So the first example that there is, which is something that is largely discussed in a lot of places, is a women's quota. The idea behind a women's quota is basically that we are putting more women in leadership positions. Now, of course, I acknowledge that just putting women in leadership positions does not mean that we will reach gender equality in the workspace everywhere, but I believe that it is a first step, and it means that if women are in leadership positions, other women will feel more inclined to also apply to these companies and to be in these positions. Now, the aim of having women in leadership positions should not be that these women can then exploit their workers. It is already enough that we have men who are in these leadership positions, and who are treating their employees really badly. We do not want the same to happen with women. We do not want women to then exploit their workers, but at least, maybe this is idealist of me, but at least I believe that if we are putting women in more leadership positions, it also means that these places are, these institutions are becoming more inclusive towards women. Something else that was mentioned in the other videos though is that if you are hiring women, make sure that your spaces are inclusive towards women. You do not want to hire women into a workplace that is really discriminatory and where women will face really traumatizing experiences. And that is why, which is tip number 2, you should have training on how your employees can be inclusive and how they can be supportive of working with women and supporting women at the workplace. The last tip I want to give you today, and this goes especially for educational institutions, is that you should check your curriculum. So check whether the books that you are making your students read are actually written by a diverse group of people, or are they really only written by white old men, which is very often the case. That was it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I now challenge you to talk to one of your friends about this video and encourage them to watch it too. If you liked it, then please leave a like and subscribe and comment, and check out the resources that I've left below. Check out the old videos, and yeah, I hope to see you next time. Until then, bye bye!